Hello, everyone. My name is Thoryn, and welcome to the Brain.One podcast, where we cover all things neurological, biological, and mental health. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Darren Prince. Darren, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Absolutely. So, Darren, you have a very interesting background. We'd love to hear about your background and then ultimately what you're working on now in the future. But maybe just starting there, if you could tell us a bit about where you came from and ultimately how you became one of the top agents in the world.
So, born and raised in New Jersey, I grew up in Livingston. I had an entrepreneurial spirit from the time I was a teenager. I started a baseball card mail order company, going to trade shows and running advertisements all in the 1980s in trade show publications and collectible magazines, and built that business up. I sold it when I was 19 for $1 million. I started getting involved in private autograph signings and was working with Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Smoking Joe Frazier, Pamela Anderson. Eventually got out of that business and I started my agency, Prince Marketing Group. I had a very challenging time back then at 25 where there was a big investigation from the FBI. And I wrote about this in my book, Aiming High, because I feel sometimes as human beings, we have to go through the darkest periods of our life to find ourselves. And that
Sure.
was it on a professional level where I trusted a source, and I didn't get charged with mail fraud or anything, but it was a very challenging time financially. And it allowed me to have a bigger vision to want to become an agent. And I thought I
Awesome.
needed to go to law school. My father looked at me like I had three heads. He goes, "You don't need to be a lawyer with the connections you have. Life is about what you know, not who you know, not what you know.
Sure.
And why don't you start with magic?" And all these incredible humans and legends and icons supported you. They knew you made a mistake. They've all made mistakes. And Prince Marketing Group was born. Now, getting to the brain part, I grew up in small classrooms, special education, learning disability, all these labels that I was told,
Sure.
and I was verbally teased by my smarter friends. And I always felt less than inadequate, even though the external success was there. Inner, innerly, I just never felt like I belonged, and picked up a drug habit as a teenager. And what started with painkillers, marijuana, wine coolers were big back then, whatever it might have been. And it worked. It worked for a long time. Thorne, I speak all over the world, and I'm very careful, especially with high school kids and grammar school kids, because at one point, what was living to use turned out to using to live.
Wow.
And it took me to my knees when I was 38 years old. And
And what year was that?
that was 2008. Millions of dollars in income, money coming in, didn't mean anything, representing the biggest names in the world. And I had a God shot on July 2nd, 2008, that changed my life forever and really had me understand the definition of wealth and happiness and inner peace and self love.
Beautiful. So that's an amazing story of just overcoming adversity. What do you think? So you mentioned this event, 2008. What was the inflection point, or what was the
So I
lesson?
had in my book, Aiming High, I talk about this too. My then uncle, who's since passed, and his girlfriend at the time, Andrea, were visiting my mom in New Jersey. And I was at the jumping off point. I already had an overdose in Las Vegas the year earlier. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they were visiting my mom from Miami in New Jersey and paid me a surprise visit. I didn't know they were coming. And this woman walked in, his girlfriend, and I felt tractor beams with her. She's just like, "You don't look it. Is everything okay?" And I told her everything. For some reason, I wanted to be fully transparent to this complete stranger. And she's like, "Do you realize you're an addict and your life is unmanageable?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Do you realize that you're powerless?" And I said, "Yes." And she looks around at all the photos on the wall with me and some of the most iconic figures of all time and says, "Do you realize that these don't mean anything because you don't mean anything to yourself?"
Mm,
And that broke my soul, and I started to cry. And she goes, "I could help you, or you want to do anything it takes." I said, "I'm desperate, anything." And she pulls out of her pocket and she goes, "I just celebrated 5 years sober." She pulled out a 5 year sober coin. "Your uncle's back in recovery. I'm in recovery. we can do this and you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And it was 24 hours later from the detox. She had me on July 2nd, 2008. I was living in the Caroline building in New York City. I
Mhm.
went to the gym 3 times a day. I steamed whatever I had to do to get rid of the horrific detox cravings and whatnot. And I lost my mind. I called them up. I said, I'm calling the freaking damn doctor. I got to get what I really need to get my hands on. There's no way I'm going to make this. And my uncle starts screaming, this is the goddamn disease. You've been acting this way since you were 14. You got to get yourself to a 12-step spiritual recovery meeting. Put your hands up. Tell these people you're sick and suffering. You need help. And she's like, Darren, you can do this. And I said, there's no freaking way. And I hung up the phone, ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and I'm going through the medicine cabinets to find any sort of non-narcotic anxiety pill she told me I could take during the weaning off period. And out came 2 Vicodins in one of the bottles, which was bizarre because I was married at the time. And my then wife, Simone, and I spent like a good hour going through all the medicine cabinets the night before, making sure there was nothing there to tempt me. And I thought that was the gift. But I fell on my knees for the first time in my life. And I screamed out to God, take the money, take the business, take the notoriety. I need a single day of freedom. If you take me out of hell, I will spend one day at a time taking others out with me. And I never had a white light moment before, and I haven't had one since. And I had it then because it was like a lightning bolt. My entire right shoulder caught fire, and it felt like it was a shock. And I actually heard a voice in that euphoric state tell me, I've got you and you're ready. And I stood up and I flushed the pills and I wound up on the computer finding a 12-step meeting at 7:30 that night at a church in the Upper East in New York City. And it was this gorgeous summer night. I'll never forget it. I'm in a taxi heading to the church. And, there was no Uber back then in 2008. And I'm looking at this beautiful sky. And I was like, oh my God, for the first time in my life, I wanted to get sober more than I wanted to get high. And I walked in to this church basement with 150 to 200 addicts and alcoholics who were all once of a hopeless state of mind. And they said, is anybody newer coming back? And the ego was done. It was crushed. I had that gift of desperation. I put my hands up. That super agent life was bullshit. That's who I was on a business level. Who I am is somebody looking for help. And when I said who I was, about a dozen of them came over to me and told me it's easier to stay or than to come back. Take the cotton out of your ears, put it in your mouth, and listen. Um, if you want what we have, then do what we do. They told me about the 5 A's: attitude, adjustment, accountability, acceptance, and action. And the one that really lured me in was several of them said, we're going to love you before you ever learn how to love yourself. And my life became about meetings and getting to the core issues of whatever unresolved trauma and character defects and going deep into my soul and working the 12 steps to eventually, one day at a time, become the person I was always meant to be. And the biggest key is service work and giving back.
100%. And aligning with purpose.
Yep.
That's something we really talk about within our healthcare protocols and at Brain.One is the alignment of purpose, whatever that might be.
Yep.
Do you feel you became more in alignment then with your purpose as you began to go down the road of sobriety?
It became everything. It took a little while. I remember I was a year sober and I was in Monaco because at the time it was right around the economic crisis that happened
Sure.
after the '08 crash, and
Yep.
Magic Johnson and Cookie were meant to have. He was planning a 25th wedding anniversary surprise birthday, surprise celebration for anniversary, and he had a couple hundred friends coming, and the trip wound up sort of getting canceled because it just wasn't the right time. But I still took the trip with my then wife. And I'm walking in Cannes. Like I said, we're staying in Monaco. We're going for
Sure.
lunch, and it's gorgeous out. And my text messages, phone calls, Facebook, 1 year sober. I'm beaming. I'm on top of the world, happy, joyous, and free. And my sponsor, Steve, who I use in that word because he's the most important human in my life, old school Italian guy from Newark, New Jersey, that did time in prison. He's got 37 years sober. Called me up and he goes, "You did it 1 year." And I said, "Yep." Because how you feel? I said, "Great." Because you know what's next? And I said, "What's next? 2 years?" He goes, "No, 1 year and one day." He
Wow.
goes, "Now listen here. You've been a taker for this first year. You got a platform around the world of very few people I've ever seen that come into recovery. It's time we start sharing in a general way about this gift and tell people that hope and recovery exist.
Beautiful.
And that's when I did my first post on Facebook. And my mom wasn't happy. She was a little embarrassed. My dad was ecstatic. They had two completely different views. I
Sure.
started realizing how many people out there were so damaged and so hurting and had family members, friends, loved ones, coworkers that needed help. And little by little, this became like routine a couple times a week. And, you know, plenty of challenges, obstacles, tough times in recovery. And the toughest, I don't know what could be compared to this with my father passing away February 15th of 2017. He was my closest friend, mentor, but he had a son sober for 8.5 years. And I
Wow.
remember saying goodbye to him the night before when we put him in hospice by myself. Hulk Hogan, is a dear friend and client, pushed me to go see him and said, "You need alone time with your dad and ask him if he wants to keep fighting." And I held his hand and I looked at him. I said, "If you want to keep fighting, tell me. But if not, just let me know." And he took a few seconds to think about it. He turned away and he looked back and he had tears in his eyes and he said like this. And I said, "It's all good." But something came over me that was like another God shot in that moment because I saw how aligned I was during the most uncomfortable time in my recovery to never feel so comfortable because I stay close to the fellowship and God and my protocols and everything that I do on a daily basis to
Sure.
understand that I can get through this. And I was inspiring other people in recovery. I was inspiring people online on Facebook, Instagram that were DMing me and messaging me, "God bless you. I'm dealing with this." And I started realizing authenticity and vulnerability is the ultimate superpower. And I told my dad, "You're going to watch your son touch the world from above." With grandma and grandpa, Joe and Muhammad. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier were dear friends and clients, and
Of course.
they already passed at that point. And it all started happening because within a year, I published my memoir. I spoke at New Jersey's largest drug and alcohol rehab gala for the Hope and Recovery annual gala. They honored me. After I did that, President Trump's executive assistant, Rona Graff, who I knew forever because I had a business relationship with him from Celebrity Apprentice, she called me up and said he wanted me in the White House to meet with his team on this opiate epidemic initiative to speak in schools and help the boys. And when the book came out, it just became a media juggernaut. All the media outlets that all my iconic clients spoke to and doing interviews over the years, they wanted me on now. They wanted me as a person to tell my
Awesome.
story. So I
And so real
launched with
real quick, Darren. So the book was called Aiming High.
Aiming
It's
High.
a bestseller.
Yeah.
Can you please yeah, tell us a bit more about that?
So, but the book Aiming High became a bestseller in four countries. Magic Johnson wrote the forward. That's how much it meant to him, that this was going to be my legacy. And it was basically all about me going deep into hell on this journey of life, by making people fly on the wall on what it was like to manage and represent some of the most iconic stars of all time, and how I came out of hell on the other side and I found my purpose. And again, I didn't even expect the book to be a juggernaut the way that it was. And yeah, like I said, it went from, I did Chris Cuomo's a dear friend. I did his CNN primetime. I did Good Day New York. I did Fox and Friends. I did Dr. Oz. I did Tucker Carlson, Jay Shetty, who's a good friend of mine. I was on his podcast and a lot of the other ones. I still continuously do media because, along the way, Thorne, and I think the reason we got connected was recovery is amazing. The 12 steps are incredible. The 12 steps everybody can use. All you have to do is remove the word alcohol or drugs out of the first step, and
Sure.
all 12 will level up and better every one of our lives. But I
100%.
realized that there were still blocks, there were still traumas, there were still things that might have been suppressed where character defects were still there. And I didn't want to have to keep doing the 10th step in recovery, which is continue to take your personal inventory when you're wrong, promptly admit it. I wanted to get to the root of why I might have done something wrong, acted wrong, been out of integrity, snapped when I shouldn't have. I live now by say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean. For anybody that's listening, it's like game changer. And I started really diving deep into frequency, as you know, with sports IQ.
100%.
My bride, my boy Lingerie. who I know, you're near and dear with too, where I started getting much more involved with meditation. I have my hydrogen water every day. I'm part of the 10X supplement program. I do grounding, prayer, meditation, breath work, working out, dieting, and service work is right at the top
Sure.
because I feel a lot of times that's not that's not highlighted enough in life. The simplest fix when you're having a rough day, when things aren't working in business or your personal life, or you're frustrated. We all know people in life that are just struggling.
Yep.
And what it does to just pick up a phone and call somebody and get out of that own noise in your own head and
Yep.
take the focus off of you and put it onto them. It's incredible. It's a game changer.
100%. Yeah. At Brain.One, we believe the future of human health is really, it lies in the idea of personalized healthcare protocols and micro habits, and then driving continuous incremental improvement. But that concept that you are a reflection of your daily routine, what you
Yeah.
do when you get up in the morning, whatever that is, for me, it's some level of gratitude, direct sunlight, hydration,
Yeah.
bioresonance, and so forth. But it's just, yeah, as we've gone down this road talking to people, that have been extremely successful as yourself, your daily routine is literally everything. And such an integral part of that is absolutely gratitude, and
Yeah.
purpose, and just aligning within that. And so, as we're getting into Mental Health Awareness Month, May 1st, just a couple days away, we're very excited to get your Aiming High protocol on the platform,
Yeah.
and would love just to hear a bit further about your daily routine and what that looks like. Getting up a day in the life of Darren Prince.
Yep. So I wake up and I get my head into a place of gratitude. You also know you had the privilege last week, I should call it David Goggins. I've been his
Such an
agent
honor.
for several years. And
Yeah,
so I get a cheat code of having him as a little brother. He's 5 years younger than me. And I get to take in everything. So if there's a day where I don't get that great deep REM sleep, I still have that Goggins. Let's go, mofo. Do what you got to do. Let's, you know, you're, by doing this now, how many people aren't doing this now? So, and it just gets me right into that, frame of mind where I could focus on the gratitude. I could focus on the positives of what I have and not what I don't have.
sure.
Focus on the blessings. I'll eat a, typical healthy breakfast, whether it's eggs or oats and, a little bit of fruit, my hydrogen water, my supplements. I get a good workout in for about 45 minutes, 6 days a week. Do some stretching with that. I'll typically always find time throughout the day to lay on my grounding mat.
Awesome.
I'll get
Sure.
some sunlight, and I've got my frequency watch. If I'm not at Sports IQ, I put the watch on. I'll do a protocol. Whether
What watch is that?
you've never seen it, you got to speak to
No,
Brian
I'm
about it. It's
excited.
incredible. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's amazing. It's got all the protocols in a watch, so it might be something Brain.One has to look into
Super
to
cool.
yeah, so it's got literally hundreds of protocols that you can run for 15 minutes, 8 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it might be, and it's just like being there with the machines.
Awesome.
And so it goes with me everywhere. So I'll use that for kidney detox, liver detox. Sometimes, emotions, there's an emotional part to it. And I think, being in service every day, there's always different people that I reach out to that recalibrates my mind and my spirit, along with the meditations, because I think it's okay. We're also used to flight or fight. The Newcom app is a big one for me. Love
Yep.
it. I'll do that, pretty much every single day. I'll bang one out for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it might be, whether it's a concentration one, a reset one. And all throughout the day, I'm eating. I'm eating every 2 hours. Typically I have, three bigger meals and then two meals, drinking a lot of water. I've got, so many different 10X supplements because I just turned 55 and I feel like I'm in my 30s because brain health is everything. And I didn't
100%.
want to just be one of those guys in recovery that was just about getting sober and staying sober. Like David Goggins said, I wanted to be uncommon amongst the uncommon. And so when you guys came to me with this, I was like, there's nothing out there like it. There's nothing for brain health. And
Yep.
people need this because they don't realize if you put the brain health first, then everything else manifests after that.
100%.
Stop thinking it's about this and working out and the dieting. No, it's working on up here.
Yeah,
whatever savages you have, whatever influencers, whatever like-minded people, game changers, have the ability now through Brain.One to share their protocols to change lives. I was like, this is a juggernaut for, like I said, just going global and allowing people a tool that they can log on to and follow people's protocols to change every single aspect of their life.
that's it. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to frame, our vision and what we're doing. And we're looking to reach 1 billion humans and help them optimize their brains and biology. And it's really fascinating in this realm, that let's say dementia as an example. So neurodegeneration, 30 to 40% of global cases could be essentially lessened relative to the impacts of dementia through behavioral and lifestyle changes. Okay,
Yep,
so there's like 55 million global cases of dementia. 30 to 40% of them could be, again, supported through behavioral and lifestyle changes, and people just don't know. And so that's one of the missions that we have, is just giving away these types of protocols so people at least have a structured framework, and you can track every day or not. It doesn't really ultimately matter, but
exactly.
you have at least a structured framework to follow.
Yep,
And lifestyle and behavior is everything. I mean, 50 to 60% of your gene expression is actually based on your lifestyle and the things that
exactly.
you do every day. So you have a genetic predisposition, but you actually do have the power to ultimately support your biology through making these types of modifications and
And the key, exactly, and the keyword that I use is consistently, consistency.
consistency.
People overuse the word discipline. It's got
Yeah,
nothing to do with discipline. I know a lot of people that are disciplined to do nothing.
yeah,
Okay. But it's what you do consistently each and every
sure,
day. That's how the change takes place. That's how you break
totally.
generational curses
Yep.
physically, emotionally, spiritually, and
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, as an Ironman distance triathlete, it really is the consistency and the importance, of also having the discipline. But yeah, I would absolutely
Yep.
agree with that.
Yep.
Well, that is so awesome, Darren. Thank you so much for your time. We're really excited to work with you, in Mental Health Awareness Month, and we'll be
Yeah,
posting the
and
protocol.
I also have, my Aiming High Foundation, my
Sure.
501(c)(3). So
Yeah.
it's a big month for us to get a lot of,
Awesome.
requests to scholarship people. And
Yeah.
we've been very blessed with, some generous contributions from different organizations and groups. And my guy Sean Callaghan in Jersey, and just some great people that are supporting the mission because it's just needed. It's a shame that some people want the help and they don't have the tools, and the financial resources to go get the help they need. And thank God I've started this Aiming High Foundation 5 years ago, and we're helping dozens of people a year.
So cool. Well, we'll link to the Aiming High Foundation in the show notes, along with your health protocol. And really appreciate your time. Anything else you'd like to share as a
That's it, man. I'm
parting
just
word of wisdom?
excited. I'm just excited to get to that billion. You know,
So are we.
we
Yeah.
get to a billion people. It's going to be one of there's got to have some sort of Oscars for apps and programs out there because
Sure.
I want to be sitting in the front row when you and your team get that award as the ultimate honor of producing something that changed human history. And I believe Brain.One is that.
Oh, thank you so much. We really agree, and we appreciate you and your team's efforts, and the support you've provided, and the inspiration. Fundamentally, I mean, meeting with Goggins last week was phenomenal. Just such
Yeah.
an inspiring human, such as yourself, and so many of the people that you represent. Um,
Thanks. Thanks
awesome,
on that.
Darren.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. All right, take
Thanks
care.
for having me on. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.